Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video we're going to take a look at web scraping, and we're going to be using Python along with a library called BeautifulSoup. And we're going to do two things. First, we're going to put just a very simple HTML page or HTML structure directly into a variable like they're doing here in the documentation. And we're going to go through some of the methods and some of the ways to basically pull things out of that structure. So they have methods like find and find all, select, find parent, and a lot of this stuff, even if you're not familiar with Python, I know a lot of you guys are JavaScript developers, a lot of my subscribers. I still think you should follow along because you're going to see a lot of similarities with how you would select from the DOM using JavaScript or even jQuery. So we're going to do that first. Then we're going to scrape a website. Now, I'm not going to scrape any public websites. There's a lot of ethics that surround web scraping. If you're going to use it for anything, for marketing or for any kind of web development, just make sure that what you're doing is okay. You know, if it's a production level project. All right, so I have this codedemos.com/sample blog website, which I just threw up real quick, and it has a couple posts on it. And what I want to do is I want to scrape it and get these posts. I want to loop through them. I want to get the title, the link that the title goes to, as well as the date, and I want to put them into a CSV file. Okay, so we're going to do that using the Python CSV module. And then you could take that file and you could view it with a spreadsheet with like Excel or something, or you could import it into a database, or you could do whatever you want with it. So that's what we'll be doing. So I'm going to close or minimize this, and I have VS Code open with a file called webscraping.py. And as far as Python, just install Python 3. As you can see, I have it installed. If I say Python 3 -- version, I have 3.7.0, and then I have pip 3 -- version, and I have that installed as well. So just go to python.org, or if you're on a Mac, you can use Homebrew to install it. Whatever you want to do. So in this file, I have an HTML_doc variable, and I have it set to just a very, very simple web page with head body tags and then two divs in the body. One is has an ID of section 1, one has an ID of section 2. In the first one, we have an H3, an image, and a paragraph, and in the second one, we just have a UL with some LIs, with some classes. So this is what we're going to use to just kind of experiment with the different methods in the way of selecting things. So first things first, we need to install BeautifulSoup. So we're going to use pip. So I'm going to say pip3 install. It may just be pip on your system, depending on how you installed Python. So let's say install BS4. That's the name of the package. And mine's going to go really quick because I already have it installed. Whoops, let me just clear that out. So we need to bring that in. So at the top of the file, let's say from BS4, we want to import BeautifulSoup, and then such a weird name. And then down here, we want to initialize it. So I'm going to create a variable called soup and set it to BeautifulSoup. And then the first parameter is going to be what to scrape. And in this case, it's just a local variable. When we get to scraping the website, we'll make a request and we'll get a response, and that's what we'll put in. But for now, it's just going to be this variable. And then second parameter is going to just be html.parser inside of a string. All right. Now we can select things directly. So if I were to print out soup.body and go over here and run the file. Now to run it, you just want to run Python, in my case Python 3, and then the name of the file, which is web scraping, that's what I called it, .py, and it gives us the body. Okay, so soup.body just gives us the opening body to the closing. Now we can also grab like the head. So if I wanted to say soup.head, let's comment this one out and go over here and run that. It gives us the head. If we wanted to target the title, we could say .title and go ahead and run that. And it gives us the title, okay? The title tags along with whatever is inside of it. Now, usually you're not going to select things this way. Usually you use methods like find. So let's take a look at find. So I'm actually going to create a variable and set it to soup.find and pass in here div. Okay, and then we'll go down here and we'll print. Let's print L, and let's run that. And notice that it gives us the div with the ID of section 1, and that's it. Okay, when you use .find, it only gives you the first one it finds. Now, if you want to get more than one, if we want to get all the divs, we would use find all, and we can use find underscore all or find all. And with most of these methods, you can use either format, either the camel case or the underscore. All right, so let's do L equals soup dot find underscore all, and let's pass in here a div, and let's comment this out. Okay, we'll go ahead and clear this up here and run it, and now you can see we get a list. See the brackets here? We get a list of all the divs, and there's only two. So we have the first one, then this comma, and then the second div. Now a list, if you're not familiar with Python, is just like an array. Okay, it works just like an array. You can access indexes. So for instance, if we want to get just the second one, let's copy this down, and we could just add on brackets and say we want the 1 index. 0 is the first, 1 is going to be the second div. So now if we run that, we get section 2, div with the ID of section 2. Okay, now if let's say we want to select stuff by like IDs and classes. So we could do L equals soup dot find ID equals, let's do section 1, and if we run that, we get section 1. All right, now let's say we want to do it by a class. So I'm going to say class. Now the UL has a class of items, so I'm going to grab that, class equals items. So let's go ahead and let's run that. Now we get an error saying invalid syntax because class is a reserved word. We can't use class. So what we have to do is just add an underscore. Oops. We just have to add an underscore, class underscore equals items, and then let's run that, and then we get our UL with the class of items. Okay, we can also go by attribute values. So for instance, our H3 up here has an HTML5 data attribute of data hello, and then it's equal to hi. So if we wanted to select by that, we could say L equals soup dot find, and we could say attrs, ATTRS equals, and then a JSON object where we say data dash hello, which was the attribute, and then a colon, and then the value of hi. Okay, so if we go ahead and run that, we get our H3. Now if this was something different like hi1 and we try to run it, we're going to get back none because there is no, this doesn't exist. Okay, but we can do that as well. All right, so we also have select. Now select allows us to select things by CSS selectors. It's actually very similar to jQuery. So let's say we want to grab the ID of section 1. We could say L equals, and let's do soup dot select, and simply pass in a number sign and then section dash 1. Okay, so we'll run that, see what we get. Now it gives us section 1, the div, but it's in a list. Select is always going to return it inside of a list. So remember that, even if there's only one. So if you wanted to get just the 1, you would add on an index of 0. Okay, so if I do that and we run it, now it's not within a list because we chose the first index. Okay, and if we wanted to select, like, let's say a class, so we could say dot item, and all the LIs have the class of item. So if we select the 0 index, that'll be item 1. So let's run that, and you can see we get the LI with the item 1. All right, now usually you're going to want to get the data within these tags. You're not really going to care about the HTML, like this LI and class and stuff. What you're going to want is this. Okay, so for that, we have a method called getText. So let's say L equals soup dot find, and I'm sorry, not find. Let's do select. No, let's do find. Doesn't really matter, but we'll find by class. So we need class underscore equals, and let's do item. Okay, and then let's say dot get text, which is a method, so you need parentheses. And if we go ahead and run this, we get just item 1. Okay, no tags or anything else. We can also loop through these if we want. So if we say, let's do for item, we'll do for item in soup.select. We'll use select dot item. Okay, which remember, select gives us a list. It'll give us a list of the items which are looping through, and then let's print out the item, but let's add on to it get text, so we only get the text or the data. And we'll run that, and we get item 1 through item 5. What is this? L is not defined. Oh, it's just because I was printing out L and it doesn't exist up here. All right, so now what I want to do is look at a little bit of navigation, okay, before navigating the structure, before we move on to actually scraping. So I'm going to clear this up, and let's say navigation. Now I'm going to take the element here, or create an element variable, and set it to body dot, let's set it to body dot contents and see what that gives us. Oops, what did I do? Oops, should be soup.body.contents. All right, so what this gives us is a list, as you can see the brackets here. And notice that there is a line break here, or a new line, and you'll see these throughout here. These are actually looked at as actual items in the list. So if I say contents 0, which is the first item in the contents, if we look at that, it's nothing because it's looking at the line break. If we want the actual first element, then that would be the 1 index. If we run that, then it shows us section 1. So let's actually chain on to this and say dot contents, and let's put in 0 here and run it. So we get nothing because, again, it's looking at the line break. Okay, so from the section, from this div with section of 1, it's going right here, which is another line, another new line. So to get the H3, which is it should be the next thing, we need to put in a 1 here like that, and then we should get the H3. All right, so let's say we want to get the next sibling. Right now we're at the H3. The next sibling, if we look, is the image, right? It should be, but if we do dot next underscore sibling like that, we get nothing because it's actually looking at the line break. What we could do is add another next sibling, next sibling, and run that, and then we get the image. But instead of doing this double next sibling, we can actually use a method called find underscore next underscore sibling with parentheses. And then if we run that, we get the image, because that's going to find the next actual element, not counting the line break. Okay. Now we also have previous sibling, so let's actually comment this out, and let's say L equals soup dot find. So soup dot find, and let's get the section 2. So we're going to say ID equals section dash 2, and let's say dot find underscore previous sibling. Okay, so obviously that should give us section 1, okay, and it does because that's the previous sibling. All right, we also have find parent. So if we comment this out and say L equals soup dot find, and let's get an item. So we'll say class underscore equals item, which is any list item, and we want to get the parent, so we'll say dot find underscore parent. and that should give us the UL. So let's run that, and we get the UL. Okay. One more thing I want to show you is that if we want to get the sibling, for instance, if we are at the H3 and we want to get the next paragraph, not just the next sibling, but the next paragraph, what we could do is say soup.find, and let's just get the H3. And we could do .find next sibling, but we could pass in a parameter of paragraph, or P. And if we run that, we get the paragraph. Okay, so you can specify what you want. So that's it. All right, so now that we know, I mean, there's a lot more that is in the library, but these are the I guess the main methods and stuff like that you would use. So now we're going to actually do some scraping. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this blog scraping.py. Okay, now for this we're going to need to import requests. Okay, now if you get a message that says like you don't have requests or whatever, just go ahead and use pip. So pip install requests, and that should take care of that. Next thing we need to do is bring in from BS4, we need to import BeautifulSoup. And then we also need to bring in from CSV, we need to import something called writer, which allows us to write to CSV files. Okay, so those are the only things we need to bring in. Now we need to set a response variable equal to requests. Okay, we're going to use requests, and we're going to make a get request. Okay, and in here we want the URL. So the URL that we're going to use is this right here, codedemos.com/sampleblog. So we're going to go ahead and paste that in here. And then once we get that, I'm going to initialize BeautifulSoup, just like we did before, except we're not going to pass in just a local variable that has the HTML in it. We're going to pass in the response and then .text. So that'll get the web page and put it in here. And then we also need to just pass in HTML.parser. All right, so now let's take a look at the structure, because whenever you scrape a web page, you need to get familiar with the structure of what you're scraping. So we want these posts, right? So I'll open Chrome Tools, and if we look down here, each post is wrapped in a class of post preview, which is very important. And then inside there we have an H2 with the class of post title. We have an A tag with the href pointing to the link. We know we want that. We want this text. In the post meta we have the author in an A tag, and then the date is in a span with the class of post date. We know we want that. And then post text has this text here. And if you want to take it a step further after the video and get some of this other stuff like the author and the text, you can do that as well. But we just want those three things. So now that we know the structure of this, let's go back to VS Code, and let's create a variable called posts. And let's say soup dot, and we're gonna use find all. Okay, so we could use select as well, but I'm just going to use find all, where class is equal to post-preview. Okay, because each one has a class of post-preview. So we want to get a list of posts, and that's what we're doing. We could use select, soup.select, and then .post preview. It doesn't really matter though. And then down here, let's do a for loop. Let's say for post in posts, and then let's just print out post and see what we get. So we'll go ahead and minimize this, and let's run the file. This time we're not running web scraping.py, we're running blog scraping. And there we go. So it just basically gives us all the posts, okay, all those divs with the class of post preview. Now we want to pluck things out of the post. So we want the title. So let's create a variable called title. Let's do post dot find, and we want to get the class that is equal to post dash title. Remember, the H2 has a class of post title, and we don't want the actual tag and stuff, so we want to do get underscore text. I'm just going to close this sidebar right here. Now, one issue with headings is it's going to, by default, have some line breaks and or new lines, and it's going to have space around the text. So we can get rid of that by saying dot replace, and we want to replace the /n with nothing. Okay, so that should take care of that spacing issue. So that'll get us the title. In fact, let's print out title. Okay, make sure that you're indented right here as well. And we'll run that, and there we go. We get all the titles. So next we want the links. So we'll say link equals, and let's say not soup, we're inside posts. So we want post dot, let's do find the A tag. Now we want the href. We could use adders, but we could also just use brackets and say we want the href. All right, actually I want to put this above that, and then let's print out title and the link and make sure that that's okay. What did I do here? Href is not defined. That's because this needs quotes. It's looking at it as a variable. Let's run that, and there we go. We get the title and the links. So next thing we want is the date. So we'll say date equals, and let's use select this time. We'll say select, and there's a class of post dash date. Now remember, select returns a list, so we want to get the 0 index, and then we want to get the text. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and add that to our print. Let's go over here and run it. And there we go. So we get the title, the link, and the date. So we know that we're getting everything correctly. Now we need to get it into a CSV file. So we'll get rid of the print right here, and let's go right above the for loop, and we're going to say with open and pass in a name of a file. We can call it anything. I'm going to call it post.csv, and then a second parameter of w because we want to write to this file. We want to say as csv underscore file, and then a colon, and then within here we're going to say csv underscore writer is going to be equal to the writer that we brought in. Okay, we brought it in up here from CSV, and we want to pass into here csv underscore file. All right, now we need to create headers. In a CSV file, you have the headers up top, like title. What do we have? Title, link, and date. So I'm actually going to create a variable called headers and set it to a list of strings. So first will be title, link, and date. Okay, now we just want to write a row using the writer. So we can say csv underscore writer, and then it has a method called write row, and we just want to pass in the headers. Okay, so that will write the headers. Now for each post we also want to write a row. So I'm going to just copy this right here. Oops, I want to copy this and go right the bottom, and instead of headers we want to write a list with all these variables. So title, link, and date. Okay, now this won't work because it's not aligned correctly. The for should be at the same level as these here where we're writing the headers. So we just want to grab this and tab it over, and that should do it. Let's save and let's run the file. Okay, no errors, that's good. Let's look over here in our structure. We have post.csv, and if we look at it, it's not going to look very good in VS Code, but you can see that we have the headers up here and then we have the values. Let's actually open this up with a better program. I'm on a Mac, so I don't have Excel, but I have the numbers program. So let's see, let's go to web scraping, post CSV, and there it is. So we wrote the headers right here, title, link, date, and then we went through each post and we wrote a row for each one with the title, the link, and the date. And we could import this to a database or do whatever we want with it. So we have successfully scraped a website. All right, so that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and experiment with it. If you want to use this site, that's fine. If you want to use public sites just to kind of experiment with, go ahead and do that. Just keep in mind that if you do web scraping for any commercial work, you have to kind of look into the ethics and the laws and stuff like that. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please leave it a like, and I'll see you next time.